Well, despite the fact that we're in the midst of the NBA offseason, there's been a lot going on pertaining to the Golden State Warriors. Stephen Curry said something kind of interesting pertaining to his all-time ranking. And speaking of all-time rankings, the Warriors have been disrespected. We'll get into that and so much more with Kylen Mills next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA or enter the promo code LockedOnNBA for a free white tech hat with any purchase. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. You can follow Kylen Mills on all social media platforms. It's real easy. At her name, Kylen Mills. You can follow me on Threads and Instagram at DogWild. Kylen, how are you doing? You're in Illinois today. That's a different background. I love your background, by the way.
Yes, so I was going to say a little bit different look. You can't actually tell behind me. There's a framed Bulls picture that's hanging up. There's this guy behind me. We got some Cincinnati Reds gear going on. Yeah, I'm back in the Midwest for a wedding in the Chicago area, but ready to talk some Warriors basketball, ready for the NBA season. I'll tell you what, I enjoy baseball, but I need something else.
Absolutely. I'm totally with you. There is a huge hole in my life. I cannot wait for basketball to start. By the way, you're in the suburbs of Chicago, but what's going on? Why are the Reds the focus of your parents' fandom? That's not that close, is it?
So I was going to say that's my husband has gifted them things because he is a Cincinnati fan. So they like to do the gag back and forth. My parents will give him Cubs jerseys and Bulls items. Then he'll give them, a framed Cubs pitch. So it's just a little, back and forth joke they've got going.
I love it. No, that's
so this gets relegated to the basement. They're not going to hang it up upstairs. We've got a ton of Bulls stuff upstairs, but the Red stuff, basement.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So Kylen's in Illinois. I'm here in the Bay Area. Starting the show off, Andre Iguodala was a guest on a show. I'm trying to remember which show it is. I can't remember what show it is. I'm actually trying to look right now, see if there's any clues here from the clip, but we'll find out when we watch it. Regardless, this clip kind of made the rounds, and it's definitely something that you and I should be talking about, I think, for a number of reasons. One is it touched on the subject of Stephen Curry's final MVP trophies. Andre Iguodala won one at the beginning of the Warriors dynasty. Some people think Steph should have gotten the finals MVP trophy that year. So Andre touched on that, but there was also something else in this clip, and it's full of nuggets. Anyways, we're going to play this for you right now. This is Andre Iguodala. He also has his own show's co-host. Evan Fournier, is that his? I believe his co-host. Yeah. So they're in this clip together. Here is Andre Iguodala. Any day now.
It is loading.
I got a loading. Oh my God. Well, okay, hold on a second here. Let me hit the refresh button. Here we go. Okay.
Steph deserved, I always say Steph deserved, I think he did deserve one before the one he got.
Yeah.
Right? I did think he deserved one. So I always say, if it was mine, cool. I know the impact I had on the game, but I don't need anyone to tell me that I did.
Right.
I'm cool with that because my whole career was based on that. I never made a first team all defensive team.
It's crazy.
I think I made
You won.
My first one was in Golden State.
2014, I don't want to say.
The 13-14 season, right? First time, right?
I researched around here.
The only reason I made the Olympic team in 2012 is because Kobe Bryant, it was this is the best defender in the league.
Period.
And I never made an all defensive first team. And then I say Drew Holiday is the best defender in the league the last 10 to 15 years. Drew just got a first-team defensive team 2 years ago.
Even Lucas said this shit.
Yeah.
So I'm just KD said it.
Yeah, and every team he's been on has been top 5 defensively.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's
because it's the matrix that they're picking. What is it? What are y'all determining?
Yeah. So I say all that to say man, I don't even care. Like, yeah, Steph should have had mine. Like, I don't really care. Like, I think Steph should have had it. But then I'm talking to Trevor Ariza. He was like, bro, you bugging.
Yeah.
Like, don't ever say that ever again. And once Trevor said that to me, he kind of checked me. He was like, yo, dog, like, we were in Houston and we knew if you played well, y'all were going to beat us.
Period.
But the average fan who argues with all our opinions every day, they don't know what the best players in the world are saying. Like, and when Trevor said that, he was like, Dre, I'm in Houston and we can't get past y'all because you. I'm like, man, Steph is cooking. He was like, no, bro, if you're having a good game, we can't win.
So to me, there was a lot to unpack there. I want to save the really good stuff for last. I want to start off first with his commentary regarding Stephen Curry's finals MVP trophies. Again, Steph has won. He earned that in 2022, and I think he easily earned that. I think there was no doubting that one.
Yeah.
But do you, in your opinion, Kylen, and I'll open this up to the chat if anyone has opinions on this as well, is one finals MVP trophy justifiable? Is it fair? Do you think he should have more? Are there other of the 4 championships? Are there any others where you feel like Steph got robbed? What are your thoughts on that angle? Let's start with the finals MVPs.
I mean, I think that Steph should have gotten it the year that Andre got it. Like, I'm sorry, but I know Andre played well, in the singular deciding game, but I still think overall Steph was the most impactful player. I mean, to me, it was kind of crazy that Andre won in that particular year, because if you looked at the playoffs and the finals in the big picture, to me, Steph was the most impactful player. So I think I agree with Andre. I think he definitely should have earned more than the one, or at least the first time that he earned that one. But I think that honestly, Andre's year was a year that it seemed like it should have been Steph.
Yeah, I like a lot. Again, Rebel the Sounds in the chat is agreeing with you as well with those sentiments. Actually, he or she. I don't know your gender. Sorry. You're saying both 2015 and 18. That was Kevin Durant's second Finals MVP that Steph should have won it that year as well. I get it. I'm still relieved to no end that Steph won in 2022, just to end that stupid critique that so many people as haters had that he never won one. Every time I think back to 2015, though, I still remember clearly enough why Andre Iguodala won that Finals MVP. What he was doing to LeBron James. I mean, LeBron James was so damn good that what Iguodala was doing, I don't know. I understand why the voters voted the way they did. Do you remember, did Steph get more votes or did LeBron? Because LeBron was doing so well too. I didn't look. I guess I could look it up fairly easily, but LeBron was just killing it. I don't know. So you think two is the magic number for Finals MVPs?
I think it's harder to argue against Kevin Durant's Finals MVPs than it is that Andre Iguodala year. That to me, in 2015 was crazy. KD though, that's tougher to argue with. So that's why I say 2, because I think that 2015 should have been Steph's, but like the KD years, you said you think the second KD year should have been Steph?
Well, Rebel the Sounds in our chat did.
Okay, Rebel.
I mean, numbers-wise, I get why Kevin Durant won. Steph had one bad game in that series. The problem is Kevin Durant had 0 bad games. And, I don't know. But regardless, I thought there was a lot of nuggets in there. First of all, I love the fact that Andre Iguodala brought up Kobe Bryant vouching for him to be on the 2012 Olympic team. Because Iguodala, it's easy to forget Iguodala was on that team. He was definitely the at the end of the bench. I can't remember if they had college players on that team or not, but I do remember Iguodala was like clearly the persona non grata of that whole group. Meaning like he had the least superstar aura around him, if that makes sense. But it was cool that Kobe recognized his defense. I mean, he's this phenomenal defensive player. But there were 2 things that really stuck out, and I want to talk about this extensively on the show. And the first part is the disrespect that Andre Iguodala. Like, I didn't know until he said that in the clip that he's never earned one first team All NBA defensive nods.
Crazy.
He's never been on the first team. That's crazy. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know until, we talked about that clip ahead of this. I think it's insanity. It's wild. He pointed out all of the right things I can't.
It's crazy. So I decided when we come back from this break, I'm going to go through every first and second team all NBA defensive team from 2015, the first year the Warriors won the title, to the present day, because I want us to examine who got picked over Andre Iguodala. And to me, it's not just the all NBA defensive teams that I want to examine. It's also the Defensive Player of the Year awards. I still maintain that Draymond Green got robbed. I mean, for him to only have one Defensive Player of the Year award and for Rudy Gobert to have 3, I mean, that just like to me, there's like a really huge issue that the NBA has with their voting system. I mean, we saw an example of it this last year when Mark Jackson, now formerly of ESPN, left Nikola Jokic out of the top 5 for the MVP voting, and then he had to apologize for that.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of lazy voting. There's a lot of people that I don't think study the game enough to be voting on these things. And then there's a lot of people that just don't get a vote, period. I've said this before and I'll say it again. The Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area, the 4th largest media market in the country, we get 1 vote total for all the NBA awards. And they take turns between the San Francisco Chronicle and the San Jose Mercury News for that award. You could have a separate debate about whether or not those two organizations should be considered to be the most prestigious of everyone here in the Bay Area to get that vote. I mean, that's a whole other discussion, but it's crazy. The whole system to me just needs a revamp, in my opinion. But yeah, we'll talk about the teams themselves and who's on those. Anything you want to add before we go to break, Kylen?
No, I mean, I agree with you. The whole system and the fact that the Bay Area only gets 1 vote is something we've talked about before. I think it's ridiculous. There's got to be a better way. There's got to be another way. The fact that it just rotates between those 2 organizations, I agree with you. I think there should be a new system.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. By the way, Chico, great call, pointing out that Anthony Davis was the college player in that 2012 Olympic team. Completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
Was he at Kentucky? Was that his alma mater?
Yeah, he went to Kentucky.
That's incredible. Good stuff. Thank you, Chico. So we're gonna delve into those all NBA defensive teams in just a moment. Got to give some love first to one of our sponsors, and that's Bird Dogs. They're all about men's clothing. Kylen, I actually have some clothes here that I got for Charlie. So let him know, and they should fit him. I hope large is a good size for him. So tell him I have some pants and I have some shirts waiting for him. It's the least I could do for never shipping you those Build Bars. But Bird Dogs they're awesome clothing. If you are of the male, if male clothing is what you like, they're all about 2 things: style and comfort. And those are really the only 2 things that matter, right? I mean, you want to look good, you want to feel good, and especially in the post-pandemic days when all of us, I feel like, are focusing a little more on comfort, even though we're out of it. Like, a lot of us still like to be lazy and stay at home and chill, but we want to look good doing it. And that's what Bird Dogs is all about. And they're also giving away like a ton of freebies now. Before they were giving away the awesome Bird Dogs tumbler. Now they're gifting a free white hat that you get free with your purchase. Again, I have Bird Dog clothes. I absolutely love them. And now you can order them too. It's super easy. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA and enter the promo code LockedOnNBA for a free white tech hat with your purchase. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA, or use the promo code LockedOnNBA. You can do one or the other. Either go to the website, birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA, or enter the promo code LockedOnNBA for a free white tech hat. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. Every dayers tomorrow on the show is Scotty Farrell. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Kylen. I think you told me last time we recorded that he's a name that is not someone you're familiar with. He is a broadcasting legend. He does not sound like a broadcaster. He has the roughest voice you will ever hear, but it's so distinct. And the dude is all about just fun. He's a huge reason why I got into broadcasting. So I'm ecstatic. Scotty Farrell is going to join the program tomorrow. But right now, Kylen Mills is joining me. You can follow her on all social media platforms at Kylen Mills. Hello, how's it going? So here we go. These are all the previous Oh, by the way, Bruce Morrow is showing some love for Bird Dogs real fast. I'm sure the sponsor will love this. Bird Dogs feels like clothes for vets. I don't know what that means exactly. Do you understand what that means, Kylen?
I think he means like veterinarians because of the name Bird Dogs. That's what
go.
I would assume, which I could see it. Bird
you.
Dogs,
There you
some comfy vet scrubs. They're not scrubs, though. They're stylish people.
Yeah, they look good. They actually do legit look good. So here are all the all NBA defensive teams and we're going to go back to, actually 2013-14 because Andre Iguodala was on the Warriors that year as well. That Warriors team was good. Here's the first team. Joakim Noah, who actually won the Defensive Player of the Year award that season. Paul George, we're going back 10 years now. Chris Paul of the Golden State Warriors. Serge Ibaka, a big who, by the way, is still out there. And look at this name. They were wrong. Andre Iguodala was on the first team in 2013-14. Didn't they just say on that show that he never made a first team?
I thought they said he only made it once.
That's the one time. Okay, once is still that it's not enough. So Iguodala
definitely is not enough. He's one of the best defenders in the league. Even now, 37, 38. If he could ever play when he did, he was still a great defender, even though he didn't have the same speed. Great hands, great reaction, good instincts, in the right place at the right time. So he's still an elite defender. And there is absolutely no way he should have been on the all defensive team once, but that's got to be the 1 year.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I thought they meant first team he never made it, but I guess maybe this is the only time he's made a period. Yeah. So he was on the 2013-14 first team. Serge Ibaka, by the way, still available. I saw some snippet where he did an interview recently where he still wants to play. He's not retired. Is Serge Ibaka, in your opinion, washed? By the way, would you be I'm not hearing his name uttered anywhere. It sounds like he's done, but I don't know. I wouldn't mind him back on the Warriors. What are your thoughts on Ibaka before we move on?
I wouldn't mind him. I mean, as a player to bring in on a vet minimum to fill a last roster spot, why not? As for whether he's washed, I mean, maybe. Could he contribute a few minutes? Maybe. Absolutely. I don't know. Spot minutes, maybe.
Absolutely.
Better. He could probably play more than Andre Iguodala last season. So
what happened last year?
I don't know. Yeah. So what do you define wash? I mean, I don't know
I mean, washed, I guess, just me. The corner three is not falling anymore. He can't play defense anymore. I don't know, but he's still out there. And Bruce Morrow saying that Friday clip, which we haven't played in a while because Iguodala.
Yeah, Cyrus, you didn't have it ready.
I don't have it ready right now. And David Bowens, thank you very much. Your set, Kylen, is getting a lot of fans. I like it too. The background is solid.
All right, well, I'll set up something similar back at my house because this is stick on bricks. It's like a wallpaper. You know what I'm saying? And it actually looks really good.
That's wallpaper.
Yeah,
wow,
isn't that cool?
Look like wallpaper.
Does it look cool? Good. Okay, good. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna have to get the same stuff.
Absolutely. Douglas Mike's right as adds to the sentiments of Serge Ibaka being washed, adding the Warriors should take a look at Usman Garuba. I'm not that familiar with him, but maybe. I don't know. We'll save that for a future show. But nonetheless, so that first team was, Serge Ibaka made the first team. Second team was LeBron James, back when he played defense, Patrick Beverley, Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard, and Roy Hibbert of the Pacers. I wonder what Roy Hibbert is doing these days. I'm a little surprised that nearly all of these players from 2013-14 making the first and second all NBA defensive teams are still in the league, still going strong. Is that surprising to you or?
No, that's very surprising. I mean,
yeah, it's 10 years ago. All right. 2014-15. This was the year the Warriors won the title. The Warriors won 67 games that season. Kawhi Leonard was on the first team, I think well-deserved. Draymond Green made the first team. Tony Allen made the first team. DeAndre Jordan and Chris Paul round out the first team. Any issues there, Kylen?
I mean, how crazy is it that Chris Paul was, did you say he was first team all defensive? Yeah. That's wild to me. Mm-hmm. Not that he's a bad defender, but one of the best, the best at his position in the league. Do you think that? I'm trying to remember back.
He was. I don't know if he is
the
now.
Best in the league?
He was known for that. I
know he's a great defender, but still.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he led the league in steals, I think, a number of years. I just don't look if he resembles his old self defensively. The Warriors are stoked on that front. Yeah, I mean it's weird. Second team,
None of them are as egregious as Rudy Gobert being a 3-time.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah,
That's
so
crazy.
I'll
And
say
then
that.
and then the second team, again, this is the year the Warriors won the title. Anthony Davis, this was back when he was on the Pelicans. Jimmy Butler again. Andrew Bogut made the team. John Wall, that's a player I've never associated with defense. He made second team all defense. And then Tim Duncan rounded out the five. I feel like Andre Iguodala should have made it over Duncan, maybe over John
Tim
Wall.
Duncan, yeah.
That's a little weird. Yeah. All right. So moving on. 15-16. This is the year the Warriors won 73 games. All right. The all NBA teams. First team, Kawhi Leonard, once again. Draymond Green, DeAndre Jordan, Avery Bradley made the first team with the Celtics, and Chris Paul, once again. I don't know about Avery Bradley as a first team with six. Anything stick out to you?
That was the first name. I was about to look up Avery Bradley's stats from that year. Like, really? First team?
First team. I mean, I know he was a good defender, but that's and then the second
he's another
team,
one that he was known to be a good defender. Like, I get it, but
over Iguodala, that's crazy. That's insane to me. And then the second team has some head scratchers. Paul Millsap, like he was in the Hawks then. I do not remember Paul Millsap as being like a defensive savant ever. I know he was a good rebounder for his size, solid post-up game, but I did not really think of him as a tremendous defensive player. Paul George, Hassan Whiteside, Tony Allen, and Jimmy Butler round out the second team in 2015-16. What are any thoughts?
I still think Andre Iguodala should have been in there in the mix somewhere. I was trying to look up just now Avery Bradley's stats from that year. He did average 1.5 steals per game, 3 rebounds per game. I'm trying to figure out why.
Yeah, I don't. That is weird to me. Andre Iguodala, in my opinion, and I've got this list visible now. So hopefully for the YouTube viewers, this makes things a little easier. Avery Bradley is not better than Andre Iguodala, was not that season. Paul Millsap was not better than Andre Iguodala. I can't remember if you have to select a center. If that's the case, fine, Hassan Whiteside. Yeah. If not, that's criminal as well. Moving on, 2016-17. This was Kevin Durant's first season.
Is Hassan Whiteside still available? Side note.
Yes. Not retired, probably out of the league though, because he's slow and he's a liability offensively. But if the Warriors randomly added him, I wouldn't hate it. He's tough.
I remember at some point he was like his name was floating around in the list of possible free agent signings. I'm like, I don't remember him ever getting signed. Definitely slow. I don't know. I just was thinking, I'm like, where did he ever end up? I mean, I wouldn't hate it. At this point, like, what are the Warriors going to do with the last roster spot? It's not going to be a high quality player. Sorry, but
no, you're absolutely right. And Rebel to Sounds writes, and this is really the whole point of us doing this. Rebel to Sounds writes, a lot of politics go into these awards and all NBA team picks. That's ridiculous. Politics should not be interjecting itself in terms of award selections for just who's the best defensive player. Like, it's a really cut and dry selection, I think. I agree with you, Rebel to Sounds. But my point is, it's insane if that's true. That's what's playing into some of these players being selected. 2016-17, Draymond Green again, Rudy Gobert makes his debut, Kawhi Leonard again, Chris Paul again, Patrick Beverley, he was on the Rockets that season. Second team, Tony Allen, who Stephen Curry recently said was one of the toughest defenders he's ever faced. Danny Green got picked over Andre Iguodala. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Andre Roberson. I don't know if you folks remember him. He had no offensive game, but he was a decent defender. And then Anthony Davis of the Pelicans. Your thoughts, Kylen?
I mean, I just still everyone on these lists. I'm like, I still think that Andre could be on the list over Roberson. Like, he was a good defender too. Like, I do remember that specifically was what he was good at, but like, still, Andre was better every single year than at least one of these guys on the list. Same thing.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry. Look, Patrick Beverley is a great defender. He's not better than Iguodala. That I would take some issue with that as well. I would move Patrick Beverley's second team, get Roberson out of there, get Iguodala on there. That's insane. This is ridiculous. 2017-18, first team, Rudy Gobert, Anthony Davis, Victor Oladipo. Look, he's good, but all NBA first team, Drew Holiday getting his love, and Robert Covington of the 76ers. Second team, Joel Embiid, Draymond Green, Al Horford, DeJounte Murray, and Jimmy Butler. Your thoughts, Kylen? That's an interesting one.
I don't hate any of the names on that list. I mean, is there any one that stands out to you that doesn't belong? So those were all great defenders.
Well, in terms of whether or not Iguodala should have not made the team, Victor Oladipo, I think, is ridiculous. I think Al Horford is a little much. I think DeJounte Murray is a little much. I would put Iguodala over those three. Would you agree with that, or do you think it's fair the way it is?
I think it's fair the way it is. This is probably of the years one that I don't hate. Chico just commented Oladipo led the league in steals that year, so that's why I figured there had to be a reason. So yeah, I'm not mad about any of these of the years that we've looked at, but
yes, just to add to that, Stephen Curry led the NBA in steals not too long ago. He did not make any all defensive team. If that is a criteria. 2018-19. This was the last year of Kevin Durant's tenure with the Golden State Warriors. First team that season, Rudy Gobert again. Paul George is back. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Marcus Smart making his first appearance. Eric Bledsoe. What? And then second team, Drew Holiday, Klay Thompson. That's another player I feel like has not gotten his due defensively. Joel Embiid, Draymond Green, Kawhi Leonard. Your thoughts?
Looking at the second team list, I get it. Maybe Bledsoe, I feel like, is kind of questionable. Glad to see, honestly, Klay. I think Klay hasn't gotten necessarily his shine for his defensive work. Marcus Smart, I do think, is a good defender. Giannis is a great defender. I don't know. I know your feelings about Rudy Gobert. Like, I get him being all defensive team, but being the defensive MVP is insane to me. So that's why, I guess if I had to pick an odd man out, I'd say Eric Bledsoe. I'd have to, look at really his numbers when he did that season. But Joel Embiid, we love Draymond. I think Kawhi Leonard is a great defender. So I don't know. I think Bledsoe would have to be the odd man out if we were going to put in Andre into the mix.
And seeing Klay on here does make me wonder if part of the reason why Iguodala didn't make more teams is because he was just a victim of the Warriors' success. Maybe there was just, you already have Draymond Green. I didn't even think about Klay. Klay Thompson, Rick Bucher brought this up when he was on the show 2 weeks ago about how what the Warriors been missing from Klay, even though his offense has regressed somewhat, but he used to be their primary on the ball defender defensively. He was, and they've lost that. But to see him on here, maybe that's why. 2020 or 2019-2020, I don't think Iguodala was on the Warriors that season. Sorry about Bubba. Rudy Gobert, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Anthony Davis.
This is when he went to the Heat, I think. Correct? Are you looking at? Is this year 1920?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So now, yes, Andre was now on the Heat. Yeah.
Correct. After initially traded to the Grizzlies, had no interest in playing for the Grizzlies. They eventually traded him to the Heat, and the Heat made it to the NBA Finals that year. So, second team: Brooke Lopez, Kawhi Leonard, Bam Adebayo, Patrick Beverley, and Eric Bledsoe again. I have no memory of Eric Bledsoe being this good defensively. That's bizarre to me. No Draymond Green, but this is also a horrible Warriors season. So
yeah, this was a really, really bad year. So that didn't help their cause at all. The rest of the names on this list aren't a surprise to me. Bam Adebayo is a great big in terms of defensive big, Pat Beverly, not a surprise. Again, I think maybe, and Brooke Lopez as well. Eric Bledsoe, probably the big surprise from these last two seasons.
Yeah,
I agree. Was he one of the best in the NBA? He's a good defender, but
absolutely.
But I think this was this year or the following year. I feel like this is where Andre really started to regress in terms of his minutes, starting to deal with injuries. Because his first year in Miami, he didn't play very much.
Correct.
Like, he was out for quite a bit. So I don't know that I could make an argument for Andre being on this list just because I'm pretty sure he was out a lot this year. But his second year in Miami, I think he played a majority of games. So
agreed. At this point, Iguodala is no longer on the table. I'm just reading these off just to see who they picked. I don't think many people memorize these lists. Chico, by the way, is correct that Iguodala was also snubbed multiple times when he was playing for the 76ers. Do agree with you there. And then Chico's saying some good stuff tonight. Like adding Klay Thompson was definitely a better defender in his prime than Danny Green. The Danny Green choice was really bizarre. Moving on, 2020, 2021. This was the year the Warriors were 39-33. Stephen Curry, in my humble opinion, should have won MVP this season, but we're talking about defense. Rudy Gobert, Ben Simmons, again, my has he fallen. Draymond Green was on the first team all defensive list. Drew Holiday and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Second team, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, Matisse Thybulle, and Kawhi Leonard. Any thoughts on that list? It seems worthy to me. What do you think?
I was going to say, I think this is a fair list, one of the most fair lists of the ones that we've seen. Like looking on here, I don't think there's any name that was someone non-deserving, but I agree. Like, how crazy is it that Ben Simmons this was not long ago. He was one of the best defenders in the league. Now he is a non-existent, non-factor. It's just, the whole saga is wild. And now you've got the Harden situation, like, going crazy day in and day out. There's something new. Like, do you think James Harden is going to literally show up at training camp and just be toxic AF? You don't think he's going to show up?
I don't think he's going to. He said he's not going to. I can't see him showing up. I think he's just going to hold out. That's my guess. I could be wrong. I don't know.
So with the new CBA, what I read is that he has to show up and he has to play in order to obtain free agency after this year. Like, there is a contingency that, like, he can't, like, not show up and not play.
Good point.
So that's the only thing that would be possibly a hook. But dude, how crazy will it be if he does show up and just, like, I just feel like I could totally see him just, like, being toxic and dramatic until he forces them to trade him. Like, this could be entertaining.
I mean, Kevin McHale came out recently, his former coach at Houston, and said that James Harden has mastered the art of forcing his way off teams. Like, he'll gain weight. So you're right. I didn't think about the fact that under the new CBA, you can't just sit out and then still be a free agent the following season. They'll hold on to his rights. So maybe he will. You're right. It's whatever it is. It's an absolute feces show. I'm all in. Give him the popcorn. It's fascinating. I don't know.
Do you think they'll trade him? Do you think how do you think it's going to play out? You think he's going to be successful? They're going to give him up?
I think they're going to give him up. I don't know. I mean, you can't keep him. I mean, I don't know. That's I haven't put that much thought into it. What do you think? I haven't put that much thought into it at all. I mean, just from grazing the surface, yes, I think they'll trade him. I don't see how you can keep a poison pill like that on your team. But I don't know. Daryl Morey's weird. What do you think?
He's totally weird. I think the only choice at this point is to trade Harden. Like, I think you have to, because you cannot have someone like that who's a cancer show up to training camp. Like, I think it's going to be, a detriment to the whole team if he shows up and he doesn't want to be there. Like, to me, James Harden has shown through his career, and you mentioned past actions forcing his way out of teams, that he can be toxic. And if he doesn't want to be there, like, I just think it's going to absolutely, it literally is going to spread like cancer to the whole team, and it's going to be a disaster. Now I'm even seeing articles with people speculating about, like, whether or not there's so much unrest and unhappiness and discontent that Joel Embiid could ask out and try to force his way out. Yeah, that's what there was some articles speculating. Like, nothing is materialized, but that there is concern that James Harden could create an environment that's so toxic, that like meme or like GIF or whatever, like, I'm going to make this so toxic that you literally could, like, force the team apart. I don't know. It could be a disaster. So I feel like you have to trade him. I feel like trading him is better than risking him coming in and, like, ruining the team this whole year and, like, creating an awful environment.
Totally. And we're reading the chat, Matt DeLeo. We're reading your sentiments on Danny Green. Totally feel you. Kylen, have you ever been a poison pill, a toxic pill in an organization? Have you ever been in a position where you want out and they won't let you out, and you're like, you're going to pay a price for this?
No, I haven't. But I will say that in working in news, and especially in local news, you do have to sign contracts. You typically sign a 2-year contract.
Right.
Some people sign a 3-year contract. And like, I know and have heard horror stories of stations not letting people out. I actually have a personal related horror story of my husband who was under contract, and I got the job to move to the Bay Area to work at Cron. And he wanted to leave, and I was going to leave before him, but he wanted to get out of his contract 6 weeks early. It was a 3-year contract, 6 weeks early. And they initially said yes, and then changed their minds. Like, as time was coming up where he'd already like packed all our stuff, he was moving cross country to live with me in San Francisco. And the boss was like, you know what? Never mind. Like, I never got anyone hired, basically like dragged his feet. Charlie had given them like months advance notice, and they wouldn't they like literally said no. And Charlie said, I don't care then, I'm going. And they like threatened him. His boss called him the day he was moving, like moving truck, like pulling out of the driveway. And it was like, hey, so you sure you aren't coming to work today? And Charlie's like, no, I've been telling you for months. Like, I'm trying to move on this day. Our lease is up. I don't have somewhere to live. My wife has already moved cross country. Like, I'm moving. And he was like, okay, well, you know, our lawyers are going to be calling you then. Like, you're going to owe us, like, blah, blah, blah. Nothing ever happened. Literally nothing happened. But that's my story about having to deal with bad contracts. Anyway, so in the news world, in the sports world, in broadcasting and TV, like, there are things like that happen. And I've heard so many stories that are 10 times worse than that. But that was our one bad run-in. That Charlie gave them like 3+ months notice, and they were like, oh yeah, you just need to leave 6 weeks out of a 3-year deal. And I'm giving you advance notice. Like, you can hire someone else. You can figure out an alternative schedule. And they're like, yeah, sure. Like, we'll post the job. We'll be on top of it. Well, then they didn't do that. They dragged their feet. They didn't have someone hired. And they're like, oh, wait, never mind. We need you to stay those last 6 weeks. And he's like, too bad. Like, I don't have anywhere to live at this point. So anyways, you didn't know what you were getting into, Cyrus, but that's my rant.
It's a good rant. My last year at KNBR, I was that person. I had a horrible boss, just an absolute nincompoop, the epitome of incompetence, someone who just clearly looked out for himself, would lie directly to your face. And I'd been there almost 10 years at this point. I was like, I want out. Just let me go. But I told them, I was like, I'm not going to give you the gratification of quitting. So if, like, I at least want some unemployment, maybe a little severance, like, just, and they wouldn't do it. He was like, nope. And I was the creative director for the station. And so I warned him, I was like, if you do not let me go, you're just going to have this disgruntled employee who's just going to be bad-mouthing you, who's going to be dragging morale down, and he's going to be doing the bare minimum, just enough. And he kept me around for a year after that. It was crazy. So, yeah, so I did that. I
love this. We're getting some good, like, late Wednesday night stories here on the pod. Like, this is going deeper than basketball.
Monday? It's Monday, right?
Oh, what day is it? It's Monday. Yeah, Monday. I don't know why I was thinking Wednesday.
It's a good one. Yeah,
day it is.
It's that kind of day. It feels weird. This feels weird.
That's all right. Cyrus is James Harden. That's what Bruce Morrow just said.
Yeah, minus the beard, and I wasn't chubby, but I guess I don't know. I feel like I was bringing more to the table than Harden. I was cool with everyone else. It was more management that I was kind of like, I had my fill. All right, and then are we ready to move on? Are we ready to move on? Or do you want to finish up real quick? Defensive player, the defensive all NBA defensive team. So
let's move on. Let's move on.
All right. We're gonna talk about, when we come back, we're gonna talk about Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry came out and said that he's the greatest point guard in the history of the NBA. We got to talk about that. That is not something floated lightly. We're also going to talk about Dario Saric and how he performed in Olympic qualifiers, FIBA competition representing Croatia. Last show I said Serbia. That was totally my bad. I'm sorry. Representing Croatia. So we got all that and so much more in part 2 of Locked on Warriors.
You are Locked on Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA or enter the promo code LockedOnNBA for a free white tech hat with any purchase. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. You can follow Kylen Mills on all social media platforms. Add her name, super easy. Add Kylen Mills. You can follow me on Threads and Instagram. Add Dog Wild. Kylen, I'm going to play this soundbite of Stephen Curry. He was I forget what the show was that he was on. Was it? It was with Gilbert Arenas. I think that was a show that he was a guest of. And he got asked this rather peculiar question. I don't know if there was an easy way to answer this. I don't know if there was a better way for him to answer this. But regardless, he was asked it, and here's his answer. This is Stephen Curry.
Are you the best point guard ever?
Yes. Yes. It's me and Magic. That's the conversation.
Yeah. Like it just, because as we can look at stats all day, right? We can look at stats and try to judge. I wasn't around with Magic.
Me
I know, right? So
I have so much respect.
I know there's not a lot of 6'9" point guard. No one's trying. I'm thinking about the '90s growing up. There was nobody trying to be a 6'9" point guard, right? I mean, it just. But I can witness and watch every kid trying to be Curry. You know what I mean? So it's like the influence that you really have on the game from the position as a player. I look at the stats and say, okay, Magic then Curry. When I look at the kids and I watch AAU, it's like, nah.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously I have to answer it that way, but I really feel like, to your point, like Magic's resume is ridiculous. Yeah. Like, all right, so the fact that we're even having that conversation it's a place I never thought I'd be in. But the fact that, to your point of like how you grade it and the whole conversation, that's why we have the conversations, because it's fun and it's measuring errors against each other. And I love that's what basketball, that's what sports is all about. That's why people watch. That's why people get in heated debates about it. I love it. So you put me on my own team, I'm gonna rep myself for sure.
And that was Stephen Curry with Gilbert Arenas. Kylen, your reaction to that? Do you think we went over the top saying that? Was that a good answer? Your thoughts?
I don't think he went over the top. If you're an NBA player, you got to pick yourself on that team. And I think that Steph Curry is a player who never does it in a disrespectful way. Like, to me, it didn't feel like he was like, oh, Magic's a joke. I don't know. I think it's just who Steph is, that I don't see. Everyone just found out my grandma.
Oh, yeah. Sorry to distract you there. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to read what the comment was about. Some Douglas Mikes, one of our fans, grandma does a podcast about monster trucks. So you're going to have to drop the link or something, or the name there, Douglas. But regarding Steph Curry, I just feel like because of who he is a humble superstar. He is not someone, he does his little antics on the court, but he's not someone who is outspoken. He's not a Draymond Green running his mouth all the time, to where I don't think he says it in a way that is meant to be disrespectful. But at the same time, as an NBA player, you should be confident. You should have swag, and you should, like you want your leader of your team and superstar to say himself. But I will say that I think it's definitely a 2-horse race. I think it's a fascinating discussion because this is a scenario where you're comparing eras. I will have to agree with a lot of what the conversation was. Like, I think solely looking at stats right now, Magic has the edge a little bit and does have a couple more awards than Curry, does have one more championship, and so I think that's fair to say. But I actually completely agree. And that was my first immediate thought when comparing Steph and Magic, was just the way that Steph has revolutionized the game with what he does. And Magic absolutely, was transcendent. He was bigger than basketball, so by no means taking away from his legacy. But the way that Steph Curry has completely changed the game for players who are 6'2", who are undersized, who want to play at the next level, they see Steph Curry and think, I can do that too if I develop my skills, if I can shoot the ball like Steph Curry does. I mean, he just changed the game with the way he can shoot the three. He's got the handles. And like, for his size, what Steph Curry does is incredible. Like, it's pretty crazy that he puts up the numbers he does. He's had the longevity that he's had. with the size and how big and long and fast and physical the NBA is now. So it's a tough discussion. I think it's clearly a 2-horse race. I think that Steph Curry has changed the game more than Magic did, but I think that Magic, no matter what, is a legend. So I don't want to take anything away from him.
Have you watched Winning Time, by the way, the show on the HBO or Max, whatever they call it? Have you seen that program?
No, have you?
Oh, it is probably my favorite show on TV. It is so good. I have to, every time I give it love, I have to include a disclaimer that it is fictionalized. All right. Like, so Jerry West, for example, hates the way he's portrayed on there. And I don't blame him because his character is a bit ornery. He's a grump. I get it. I understand why Jerry West doesn't like his portrayal. I understand why Magic Johnson disputes his portrayal. But it is a damn good TV show. I cannot recommend it enough. It's this one of those few shows where, like, the moment I found out season 2 is out, I'm glued. The moment the new episode drops, I'm watching it. So it's covering the Lakers dynasty. So right now in season 2, they just finished up, I think, the 81 season. And look, I love Steph Curry. I think if you watch this show, if you know anything about me, I love the man. I what he's brought to the Bay Area in terms of success and glory and who he is as a person is phenomenal. But I'm still going to put him second behind Magic Johnson. So much of what, to me, when it comes to these rankings, and I don't know if this can apply to other sports because of how many players are cogs in the machine. In basketball, there's 5 players on the court. It's not a big number. And if you're the best player on a basketball team, and especially if you're a championship team and you're the best player on that team, you're making a profound impact, like much more so than, say, like an offensive or defensive lineman in football, or let's say a shortstop in baseball. Like you are making or breaking the team that you are on. I understand it's a team game, but like the superstar, the lead, the alpha, whatever, metaphorical, allegory you want to apply to it, it's important. And that's why I put so much weight and emphasis on these rings and on these trophies. So Magic having 5, to me, still puts him ahead of Steph. And this is why I've also been saying on the show repeatedly that if Steph gets that 5th ring, the discussion's changed. Right now, Magic Johnson, in my opinion, is on Mount Rushmore. Stephen Curry is not. If Stephen Curry gets a 5th title, he replaces Magic on Mount Rushmore. That's my humble opinion on it. Do you have a top 10 list, Kylen?
I don't know that I necessarily have like a set out top 10 list. I mean, immediate names that come to mind, John Stockton, what was he, a 10, 11 time All-Star? I think Curry, I think maybe Magic, Curry, Stockton, Isaiah Thomas. Do you have like a set all like 10? Okay, so you have a set hierarchy in your head. Here's the thing. I hate like comparing eras because I think it's so hard when you look at how different the game was in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s. So like these are players that while they may have played the same position, like brought totally different skill sets. Like that's the crazy thing to me. That makes it, I mean, it's interesting, but that just makes it so hard to compare like amongst eras because like what a point guard did 20 years ago, 30 years ago, what the numbers they put up, like don't necessarily reflect what we're seeing in the game today. And like, offenses score so much more. There's not as much defense, like, just the way the game has gotten quicker and players are faster and more skilled and there's not as much banging under the basket. Like the game's just changed in a lot of ways. So I always think it's hard to like come up with these like top 5 or 10 lists just because it's hard to quantify like what someone did in one era versus a completely different iteration of the NBA. But I would love to hear your top 10.
Well, I didn't do it by position. I just meant like all-time top 10.
Oh! I thought you were talking about top 10
we can do both.
guards. I thought you were talking about top 10 point guards.
Well, by position, I don't have it ranked like in order. I can just give you who like I feel. We can talk about that when we come back because that is an interesting topic. I want to pick your brain though. I'm curious to know who's on your all-time list. Okay. Got to give some love first to Bird Dogs once again, one of the many official sponsors of the Locked On Podcast Network. They're all about style, as we mentioned earlier. This is a 2-part show tonight. If you're watching it live, you get it all at once. I'm hooking up your husband Charlie with some Bird Dogs clothes. They sent me some. I love these things. And look, the ethos of Bird Dogs is very simple. Incredible comfort. It's like you're wearing pajamas. You could just lounge around all day in them and not think twice. But if you decide, oh no, I got to leave the house, should I change? You don't have to. That's the beauty of Bird Dogs. You can live like a bum and look classy in the process. Are these good marketing slogans, Kylen? Like, I don't know if they're going to go with that or not, but yeah, act like a bum, look like a pro. I don't know, whatever it is. That's what Bird Dogs is all about. You look good and you feel good. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA or enter the promo code LockedOnNBA for a free white tech hat. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA or use the promo code at checkout LockedOnNBA for a free white tech hat. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise. That's me stalling. You
are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Again, for the everydayers tomorrow, Scotty Farrell, legendary sports broadcaster. He's gone more on the gambling side of sports these days. He's on Sirius XM. He was Howard Stern's personal selection as a host. I mean, the dude's a legend. I'm really excited to bring him on tomorrow's show. But right now, Kylen Mills joins me. You can follow her on all social media platforms at Kylen Mills. Super easy. Kylen, do you have a top 10 list of the all-time greats, in your opinion?
Of all NBA players. So first of all, Michael Jordan is number one. I'm not going to get into the debate. No one has been able to replicate what Michael Jordan has been able to do. No player has been more clutch than MJ has been, and that includes LeBron. That's the thing. To me, I have seen LeBron crumble when it comes down to that last moment and the last shot that needs to be made. He is an incredible player. The difference is not large. The margin isn't big, but I think that Michael Jordan has to be number one, LeBron number two. After that, it is very difficult to order my top 10, but I think I would say Kareem. I like Bill Russell, Wilt, Kobe. I don't know that necessarily I'm saying all of these in order. Now I'm trying to think, who am I forgetting? Bill, Kobe, Wilt, Kareem. I think Magic. I'm kind of on the fence. Like on the cusp of my top 10 is Steph, and Shaq is another one who's like, I think KD, Steph are like right on the outside.
Okay.
Like right around
KD
like
is that close. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I think, KD is up there. He's not top 10. But Larry Bird, I think, is up there. I think he's in my top 10, maybe more towards the back end. Kobe, like I said, Kobe for sure. Shaq's the one that like maybe is number 10. Like I think I have Shaq like right at 10. And then Steph at like 11. And then I think KD isn't far behind. I think Steph maybe is in the 11 to 12 range. I think one more championship and he would be in.
Yeah, Steph to me got into the top 10 and pushed Shaq out when he won his fourth championship. I like Bruce Morrow's list here. I keep bringing it back up. The only thing I would change with Bruce's list and mine is I don't think Hakeem is a top 10 player. Damn close. No disrespect to Hakeem.
Tim Duncan's in mine too, for sure.
Yeah, same. I just would replace Hakeem with Wilt Chamberlain. To me, Wilt has to be a top 10 player. I also think Bill Russell should be in the top 10. I don't know if I see that in here as well. Mm-hmm. But I even have it in order, which is Jordan, obviously number one. Number two right now for me will be Kareem. Number three, Magic. Number four, LeBron. Number five, Bill Russell. Number six, Wilt Chamberlain. Number seven, Tim Duncan. Number eight, Kobe Bryant. Number nine, Stephen Curry. Number 10, Larry Bird. That is my list in pecking order. What about, and here's Richard Sarpong. I want to read yours real fast. You have MJ, Kobe, number two. Duncan, Braun, Shaq, Bird, Wilt, Kareem, Russell, and Steph. Yeah, I think that's exact same as mine, just not in the same order. Now, what about point guards, Kylen? I don't have a strict order for point guards, but I can list to you who I consider the all-time greats. But who would you put in your top 5 or top 10, depending on
Before
how
we
far
get
you
to
want to
that,
go.
I want to ask you a question. And Richard, I'll ask you this too. So I think it's interesting. A couple of you guys have LeBron at like 4 on your
Yeah.
list, when the big debate that you hear everywhere is it's LeBron or MJ for number 1. So why do you put a couple of those guys ahead of LeBron?
To me, nearly every person who puts LeBron in the same conversation with Jordan is younger and never watched Jordan play. So you miss the impact he had. Like to me, the difference between MJ and LeBron, besides the fact that MJ accomplished so much, that the difference between the two, when you factor in scoring titles, MVPs, Defensive Player of the Year award with Jordan won one year, like there is a Hall of Fame career separating Jordan and LeBron. Meaning, like Jordan, I think, got 5 MVPs. LeBron has 4, right? So Jordan has like 1 more MVP, has like 8 more scoring titles, has 2 more championships, has 2 more finals MVPs. And so when you take all these extra things that Jordan has over LeBron, that in itself is a Hall of Fame career. And when you have a Hall of Fame career separating 2 players, they're not in the same conversation. It's ludicrous to me to have LeBron. LeBron just doesn't have the killer instinct. That's what it comes down to for me. I don't think he has the same mentality of, I will slit your throat and murder you to win a championship. I don't think LeBron really has that much of a cutthroat mentality. Michael Jordan cared about winning more than anything. And it's a huge reason why he got his 6 titles, and it's also why I put him as an all-time great. LeBron, when all said and done, I might have him as number 2. I don't know. Right now, I have him as number 4, just because, again, the championships do carry weight. I mean, his 4-6 record in the NBA Finals carries weight. The loss to the Dallas Mavericks, Jordan would never do that. Would never do that. Like Michael Jordan would never lose to the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA Finals. Like that is a stain on LeBron's legacy. To me, LeBron, and this is just me personally, all right? I don't mean to make this a LeBron hating segment, but the ego of LeBron is a little much too. Like LeBron has come out publicly and called himself the all-time great, or the greatest player ever. The decision still is still a reminder to me. The dude just loves attention a little too much. That rubs me the wrong way. That has nothing to do with his performance. I'm not saying that factors into, his all-time ranking, but that stuff, Jordan did not care about those things. All Jordan cared about was winning. That's it. Just what do I have to do year in, year out to have a ring on my finger, to hoist the Larry O'Brien trophy? And LeBron just doesn't have quite that same level of killer instinct. He's a little more into like the fun side of basketball, and Jordan, to him, fun was winning titles. That's all he cared about. So I hope my rant I explained things clearly.
I love that rant. I love that rant. I was just going to say, someone commented in the chat as well. They just had watched The Last Dance recently. I can't remember who it was. Sorry if you just mentioned that. But it's true. If you watch that, like Michael Jordan's mentality was different. He was just built different. I agree with you. LeBron is a great competitor, but you can tell he loves, the fun side. He loves the fashion. He loves being in the spotlight. I enjoy watching LeBron play. He's a fantastic player. He's a legend. To me, he's number 2, but I just think Michael is 1, and I agree with you by a long shot. Space Jam 2 was terrible, Bruce Morrow pointed out, and I'm going to co-sign on that.
It was awful. It was awful. But so what about point guards? I see like Ron Burgundy here, San Diego, has his top 10 point guards. Who is in your list, Kylen, before we move on?
Yeah, so a couple of the ones that he has on there, I included. So you got to have John Stockton, Oscar. That's who I said. Isaiah, Magic, Steph. Do I have Steve Nash in my top 10? That's
I don't.
Interesting. I don't
top
think
10. I guess I would.
I mean, maybe he's definitely not in my top 5. Maybe my top 10. Jason Kidd.
Hell
I
yeah.
think so. Yeah, I think so.
Hell
So
yeah.
I like how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I like a lot of the players on that list. I'm trying to think who else.
I'm just trying to think if anyone was missing from this list. I don't think.
Yeah, I was going to say, who else that isn't on this list would you say?
No one. I'm trying to see if anyone else is noticing anybody missing.
Ron Burgundy, you came out and crushed it, Ron.
Nailed it. If we were giving out anything, you'd be a winner, but we're not. Sorry, but yeah, Isaiah Thomas, absolutely.
Yep, has to be.
And Nash to me is way at the bottom of the list. Richard Sarpong brings up a good one. Tony Parker. Yeah, I mean, if you're thinking top 10, I think he probably should be in there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
why not?
What about, was Jerry West on that list? That's another one that I was
But
thinking
Jerry West
about.
wasn't a point guard. He was more like he was a 2. If we're going traditional,
if we're getting technical about it.
If we're getting technical about it, yeah, Jerry West was much
Bruce
more.
Morrow just said the same thing. Oh,
exactly. Yeah, I would say no. I don't think he was the. I don't know. I didn't watch a film of those super old Lakers teams. I don't know.
I know that's the only thing. It was way back in the day. That's why I'm like, I thought he was running the offense, but maybe not, because he was incredible. He was like.
So, anyways, I want to play this soundbite, but are we done? Is it time to move on from the point guard topic?
For sure.
And Chico makes a good point though. If Steph's a point guard, so is Jerry West. But Jerry West was what, like 6'6"? I mean, you got to factor in defensive assignments too. Like Jerry West was not, I don't think, was routinely guarding the other team's smallest, quickest player.
Right, right.
That comes into the point guard discussion as well.
That's fair.
I don't know. Yeah.
What about Chris Paul? Is Chris Paul anywhere near the top 10 for you?
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say.
So.
I don't remember if he was on that list, but I would say he's right around there.
Yeah. So one more time, that list was really good. I'll just read the players one more time. So Isaiah Thomas, Oscar Robertson, Magic Johnson, John Stockton, Jason Kidd, Stephen Curry, Steve Nash, Gary Payton. Yeah. Yes. Hell yeah. I don't know why I didn't. Is that Walt Frazier that's on there? And then I guess Chris Paul he's not. So who?
But that's what I was saying. Is what do you think Chris Paul? Where would Chris Paul fall?
He would be in the top 10. I would put him over Tony Parker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess Tony Parker doesn't make the list. He was a defensive liability. I mean, he was part of the. I don't know. We could have a long conversation about that, I guess.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, Chico's making a good point though, by the way, about how Jerry West maybe was a point guard. I don't know. You might be right. You folks might be right. I just that's not ever something I considered him as a point guard, but you might be right. I don't know. I thought he was taller. Chico's saying he's 6'3". I thought he was closer to 6'6", but maybe I'm mistaken. I'm sorry. I am human. So no Bob Cousy. Sorry, Bruce. I'm not.
Yeah.
That's so old school. But real quick, by the way, earlier in the show, we played that soundbite of Andre Iguodala. Before we move on, there's one other thing in that clip that I want to touch on, because he brought up I forgot the player already that was on the Houston Rockets who he brought up, the wing, Trevor Ariza. He brought up the fact, and I don't think people talk about this enough, because if you look at the 2018 Western Conference Finals between the Rockets and the Warriors, a lot of people will say, well, if Chris Paul did not suffer the hamstring injury, the Rockets win that series and the Warriors go home. But what no one discusses is the fact that if Andre Iguodala did not get hurt earlier in that same series, the Warriors probably win that series in 5. Trevor Ariza, and I'm glad Andre Iguodala brought that up, that he was that good. And Trevor Ariza, his opponent, recognized that. Andre Iguodala got injured, I believe, in game 4 of that series. Maybe it was game 3. I think it was somewhere in that range. The Warriors were up 2-1. And I steadfastly believe if Andre Iguodala does not get hurt, the Warriors win that series in 5. They had that series locked up. They beat Houston, I think, by like 41 points or some astronomical blowout. Anyways, I digress, but I just wanted to give Andre his due for that as well, because people always talk about Chris Paul and how if he wasn't hurt, the Rockets could have won that series.
That's fair.
Andre Iguodala was injured too, though, and like if he was there, it's a 5-game series. It's a wrap. And Chico's on fire today, by the way. Do you agree with this, Kylen? If Chris Paul was on those Spurs teams, they probably win like 8 chips. Yeah. I don't know that many, but yeah,
I agree. They would have. That's
anyway, so
had him in load management from the get-go. I like that.
So I want to give Dario Saric his due real fast as we wrap the show up here. Croatia won this tournament. It was a FIBA Olympic qualifying tournament. And by winning it, they stay alive in their hopes to qualify for the 2024 Olympics. They defeated Turkey in the final. They were underdogs. And Dario Saric, new Golden State Warrior, in 35 minutes of play, had 22 points, 11 rebounds, led the team, and they won because of him. So kudos to Dario Saric. I'm really excited to see him play for the Warriors this year. Any thoughts on that, Kylen?
No, I mean, from what I saw in his past clips, I know we've talked about him throughout, this play in FIBA. He's looked really good. I've said from the get-go, the thing that impresses me most is his passing ability and vision for a
Mhm.
big. I'm really excited to see if he is a big who can stretch the floor. He can facilitate. The Warriors have a very fluid offense. Anyone can really run the floor, as we see Draymond Green does it routinely. We've talked about how there really isn't a need for a defined traditional point guard necessarily at all times of the Warriors offense. They want to go, go, go. They want to run the floor. They want to push the pace as much as possible. You got a big who can get out and who has great vision and can run that offense, or at least can help facilitate with the passing. That's a huge, huge, huge advantage with, I just think specifically the style the Warriors play in. That's why Draymond Green's useful, because he
Mhm.
can pass. I don't know. I've been really excited. I think Saric looks good, or Saric. It's like a Saric,
Yeah,
right?
it's Saric. Yeah, you pronounce his
Yeah,
last
it's
name
Saric.
with a yeah, with an SH, even though it's just S. Yeah, it's
Yeah, proper
Saric. Yeah,
pronunciation.
it's a hard one.
Saric, I think, is going to be a great addition. I'm excited to see how he fits in with the Warriors.
Absolutely. He's
He
looking
looks
healthy, as
healthy
Douglas
too.
Spikes writes.
Yeah, yep. I was going to
There's
say
a
he
comment here.
looks
Oh, Richard
in good shape.
Sarpong says he's way better than Mania. I don't know if that's true. If it is true, the Warrior. I mean, yeah, be optimistic. Be optimistic, folks. That's Saric.
Time
It's
will
looking good.
tell on that. Time will tell.
Absolutely. Finishing up the show, a couple of people in the chat. Ron Burgundy wrote, "Why haven't the Warriors signed Juan Toscano Anderson yet? Just do it already." Oz writes, "Who's getting the last spot? Is Iguodala coming back? No. Is it going to be Harry Giles? Is it going to be Glenn Robinson III, who we mentioned on the show last week, is in fact working out for the Warriors, or at least he's in San Francisco? But we can I think safely assume it's not 100%, but likely that those workouts involve the Golden State Warriors. Do you have any preferences, Kylen, for what the Warriors do with that 14th spot? Any thoughts?
I said go with JTA. Go with the devil you know. Sorry, JTA, you're not the devil.
I like that adage, though.
I'm just saying, it's an adage, okay? But you know what you're getting, and that's what I've said about JT all along. He's very consistent. He is not a player who is going to be a huge impact player night in and night out, but he adds size, he adds length. He's a good rebounder. He's a good defender. He commits some fouls. He might come in and bang people up, but he brings good energy, brings good chemistry, already knows the Warriors, knows the system. Steve Kerr seemed to like him during that championship season. They signed him, after bringing him in on a two-way. So, like I said, it would seem like it would make the most sense to where he's comfortable. He's familiar with the Warriors. He's familiar with the systems. He was liked by his teammates and the coaching staff. So, I just feel like that goes a long way. And when you're looking for a player that's not going to be contributing big minutes every night, I think the chemistry piece is huge. And I miss the Warriors bench. I miss the
know.
Warriors bench from that 2022 championship. The vibes were elite. The vibes were immaculate on that team. And it kind of sucked last year. Some of the youngsters didn't know how to bring it. Bring
True.
JTA back. Bring the bench mob back.
True. No, you're absolutely right. You know what's weird, Kylen? I read opinions on X or Twitter, whatever it's called, and then I read opinions of the same team's fans, Dub Nation, on Instagram, right? On the replies, so to the more photocentric app, and they're like night and day. Warriors fans on Twitter or X or Twix, they want nothing to do with Christian Wood, right? I never hear them reference Christian Wood. They have more opinions and sentiments more in line with what you just said, right? Juan Toscano Anderson, Harry Giles III looks pretty good. But you go to Instagram, and I feel like every member of Dub Nation there is clamoring for Christian Wood. Give him a chance. If he comes to the Warriors, he's going to get rewarded with a big deal next year, given how well he's going to play for the Warriors. It's like and Dwight Howard. I saw that in the chat as well, too, and I've seen that a lot on Instagram. Richard Sarpong right here. It says sign Wood or Dwight Howard. It's so weird. It's two entirely different opinions. I have no idea the why of it. Do you have any thoughts on that in terms of why that's the case? Or does Christian Wood and Dwight Howard sound good to you? What are your thoughts on all that?
No, I think it's fascinating. And it's not just with the Warriors, but I've noticed this across sports, because you'll see some of the same articles posted by ESPN, Bleacher Report, whatever, on on all of the different media outlets. Sometimes I'll see the same articles on Twitter, then on Instagram, then on TikTok, and every single one has a different majority reaction. I think it just goes to show how different the demographics are of active users. Like, it's obviously a different group of people. And isn't it so funny how nowadays, like, how segmented social media is? Like, Facebook is now for boomers. Like, that's it. Like, I'm not I'm not trying to be
You're right. You're right.
but okay, sorry, that's terrible. But like,
Well, no,
Facebook is literally boomers. It's boomers
You're
and it's like
right.
older people, like people's like grandparents, your parents who are like reconnecting with people they knew in high school. They're like commenting on your cousins, like, stuff with like stupid comments. Like, that's Facebook. Twitter, I feel like, is more for diehard sports fans. That's one thing I'll notice. Like, friends that I have that are like casual fans, like, don't follow the teams on Twitter necessarily. Or if they do, they aren't like involved in actively commenting. They aren't following the different beat writers. They aren't like, I just don't think this casual fan is as actively involved in following the tweets. I think someone commented that too. They think the Twitter followers are more hardcore fans. And I agree. Like, Dub Nation Twitter is intense. Not to say that there aren't intense people on Instagram. I also would be very curious, like, as to what the different demographics are with like age, sex. Like, is it more men of a certain age group on Twitter versus women on, I don't know. I'd be very curious to see if there's any demographical differences, because I've noticed that. And it's not just the Warriors though. Like, it's other, like, I've noticed it on other, sports media outlets that post that it'll be totally different. And the other thing is, sometimes I'll notice too, like, big differences in terms of like political parties. Like, I think that's kind of fascinating. Like, sometimes you'll see an article on Twitter and Instagram, and like in one, people, oh, that person's a Karen. The other, like, oh, what a snowflake. Like, it's just funny.
Well, in Twitter or Twix or whatever, like, it's a much more male dominated platform than Instagram. You would agree with that, right? Like, I think Instagram's more
100%.
balanced with gender, correct? Would you agree?
Yeah. I think more women are even on Instagram. I don't know if that's a fact, but I just feel like I always see all these like female influencers and women selling clothes and bloggers and fashion models and all this stuff. I feel like I see more of those women than men on Instagram, but so I feel like there maybe would be a gender difference. I don't know. Very interesting discussion. If you have any thoughts, drop us a comment, because I really, really, I don't know. The players care more about the Instagram sentiment.
Agreed. That I agree strongly with. Like, I think most players don't like Twitter. It's much more for the fans. But you see the players on Instagram like engaging and stuff like that.
Yeah, 100% they do.
V writes, and I think this is accurate as well. Twitter is like an NBA subreddit. It is. It's just.
I agree.
I agree with the hardcore sentiments. I don't know if hardcore correlates with intelligence. Like, I don't know if like being hardcore means you know the most. Maybe not. I don't know. I just don't know if there's a legitimate correlation there. V is right about KD. KD is a Twitter junkie.
He's one of them, but generally though, players post more on Instagram. Like, I follow all the players; they post more Instagram stories and stuff than they tweet, for sure. Aside from KD, though, he might be the exception.
And Chico, great Chico, you're on fire today. And
Chico, we're gonna have to send you some bird dogs, Chico.
I think Chico writes that he thinks, or she, I'm sorry, it correlates with perceived intelligence, but maybe not actual intelligence. Very true. Perception oftentimes is confused with reality, and that's how it goes. Richard Sarpong, hardcore doesn't mean you know what you're saying. The whole thing is fascinating. Val also asked, what's wrong with JaVale McGee? He's not available yet. If he's bought out, I would absolutely love him on the Warriors. I think he would be the best fit, but he's not available yet. We don't know what's going to happen with him in the Mavericks. Kylen, do you have any?
I'd love McGee if he was available, but that's just not the case at the moment.
Totally. I'm not big on Dion Waiters. T-Swag Diddy's asking about Dion, who was reportedly coming in. We don't know if that tryout happened yet or not, but I'm not excited about Dion Waiters. Do you have any thoughts, Kylen?
No, doesn't impress me. I mean, are you into Christian Wood?
Yes.
So you would like Christian Wood? I
do. I like Wood. I do. And I'm a heterosexual male saying that. I like Wood. Yeah, I do. And I hope the people who like, who love Steve Kerr and are sometimes upset with me for my criticisms, that I want Wood because I believe in Kerr. If he actually tries to coach this individual, and if they try to make him work with this team, Christian Wood physically is a specimen. He's an athlete. Like I would love to see his fit. But look, at the same time, it's like if the Warriors don't feel he'd be a good fit, they're going to make the right decision. I mean, I hope.
For sure.
So, anyways,
good numbers last year, though. Like, I think Christian would be a good addition.
But I prefer JaVale McGee. I'd much prefer JaVale McGee. I think Harry Giles is someone who's very intriguing. Again, 6'11", he's an athletic freak. It looks like his three-point shot's much better. But look, Richard Sarpong, and we can maybe finish the show with this, Kylen. I think touches on the ultimate point for the Warriors this offseason. And this is where, I myself am not feeling that great yet. Richard Sarpong writes, Juan Toscano-Anderson is not guarding the Joker. He said this all last year. We need a big, someone to deal with Anthony Davis, Nikola Jokic, Jaren Jackson Jr. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I still don't know if the Warriors have an answer there. Do you feel confident, Kylen, about the Warriors dealing with these, all NBA type centers?
No, I don't, because they don't have an answer. They didn't add a counterpart to that. I don't think that Dario Saric is the answer. What other bigs did they add aside from drafting a rookie? Like, a rookie is not coming in and taking that defensive assignment.
Exactly.
And to me, that should have been the biggest focus, because the Denver Nuggets are the team that everyone needs to be targeting. And that's the number one thing. You've got to figure out how to shut down Jokic.
Yes.
And the Warriors struggled. They couldn't handle AD. That's why they got eliminated by the Lakers. And what has changed this season? Not much. I like the addition of Saric, but I don't know that they still have a clear answer. And to me, that was something that should have been addressed sooner. That was something that should have been addressed for a higher value player in a trade. Like, whoever you're getting at that 14 spot, no, JTA isn't the answer, but who is?
Exactly.
I like JaVale McGee. I think but let's say he's not available. I don't see any of these guys on the market that are oh, wow, this is going to be the one now that we sign on a vet minimum who's going to shut down Nikola Jokic. An NBA MVP, that's just not going to happen. So to me, it should have been addressed. It should have been addressed earlier, and it's definitely still a concern to me. The Warriors' size is definitely the weakest part of the roster, I think, for sure.
Totally agree. And that's where I do hope the Warriors focus on that, even though a lot of people will say the 14th roster spot is not that important. With the Warriors, it is. They are an exception to that rule. The strength in numbers adage rings true with this Warriors team. We've covered this extensively, how in all these title teams, they're dipping deep into that bench. My biggest concern isn't just Jokic. It's the fact that when you play the Nuggets, it's Jokic and Aaron Gordon. When you play the Lakers, it's Anthony Davis and Jared Vanderbilt and LeBron James. That is a massive front court.
Yeah.
When it's the Memphis Grizzlies, it's Steven Adams and Jaren Jackson. The I don't know how the Warriors are to combat that. I know rebounding, the way their rebounding system works, it's cohesive. They work as a team. It's similar to their team, their defensive philosophy. But athleticism, physics, size, these things do matter. And I'm a little worried too. I'm totally. And Rui, you're right. Richard Sarpong and Rui Hachimura, you're absolutely right. The Lakers are a big team. They're a big team, and I don't know what's going to happen there. So, anything we've forgotten? Anything we
Zach Schmelz. Yeah, I was going to say team defense, but the thing is, the Warriors were playing team defense last season. They weren't playing it very well, but team defense wasn't enough to stop AD. He came out the first night against the Warriors in the Western Conference semifinals and dominated the paint on both ends and put up record numbers in a 30-20 game. Team defense wasn't enough when you have a player who is that dominant. Sometimes the help side D is not going to be enough to shut down one of these guys. You've got to have someone who can answer. And the Warriors actually got considerably better when Draymond Green started handling most of the defensive assignments against AD later on in the series. That definitely helped because he was able to pull him out of the paint a little bit, but I don't think the Warriors have a clear-cut answer coming up this season. Now, they did overcome it in their 2022 championship because that was also a big concern that year too. So not to say it's impossible that they could still win games, but the margin for error is smaller.
Yeah.
And you have to be perfect in other aspects of the game. The Warriors can't be turning the ball over constantly and letting AD have his way inside. It can't be, a multitude of issues. They can't be bad defensively and, AD is dominating them on the board. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're
Everything else went right in 2022, despite the fact that they were a little bit undersized. So that's the thing. Like this last year, other things weren't, in the same working order as they were the season before, to where the size became more of an issue. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm just saying it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. Folks, have a great rest of the night and week. We gave you a lot of content there. That's almost an hour, 20 minutes, which we're splitting up into 2 parts. Kylen, safe travels. Tell your hubby hello for me. I got his bird dog clothings, and I hope to get Charlie back on the show too as well.
Yeah,
he's good at this also. He's a talented individual. Thank you, everyone. Follow Kylen Mills on all social media platforms at Kylen Mills. You can follow me on Threads and Instagram at Dog Wild. This program is on Twix at Locked On Dubs. That's where we announce show times and all that good stuff. Scotty Farrell joins me tomorrow. Kylen will be back soon. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks, Kylen. Thanks, everyone. I think we're done. We out? I got to get the close thing. Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, get it out.
There we go. That's how we do it.
I like
That's how
wood.
we do it.